Fortified Zone is not a game I had growing up, but it was a game I was aware of from pictures in gaming magazines, and this game looked amazing to me. So I finally got myself a copy, sat myself down with my original Game Boy, and played through it. And was it worth it? Yeah, it was. This is a pretty great game, but unfortunately it does have some flaws. Let's get the basics out of the way. This game looks great. Seriously, I don't know how they packed so much detail into the art and animations of the player characters, but they look fantastic. The music is a little hit and miss. In general, the music works well. There's one song in particular, the Stage 3 music, that I love enough, I'd put it in a playlist and listen to it in the car. But then there's the Stage 2 music, which almost makes me want to turn off the sound completely. Fortified Zone is a top-down action game. You play as two characters that each have their own special abilities, and you can swap back and forth between them as needed. In each of the 4 stages, you travel from room to room, exploring, shooting enemies, and solving basic puzzles before eventually finding and killing an end boss. In my opinion, this sounds like a recipe for an awesome game, but unfortunately, the implementation is a little weird in places. For example, the first time I picked this game up, I had no idea what was going on with my health bar. Like, I got hit with a bullet, okay, and my health bar decreased, and then I got hit again, and I think, oh no, I'm gonna die. But then suddenly I have full health again? So the way this game works is that it has a sort of health pack system, instead of something like extra lives. If you have extra health packs, when you lose all of your health, the game will simply use one to refill your health bar. And this works okay. But I'd almost prefer just having a single health bar and maybe have the enemies drop health more often. But really, the way they implemented it works just fine, if not a bit confusing at first. Also, there are enemies that will respawn and drop health packs over and over again, so you just have to farm for them. Alright, but anyway, that leads into my biggest complaint, the hit detection. It is not forgiving, it's just brutal. Bullets that look like they're going to graze past the player's head will hurt you. Getting anywhere close to spikes will damage you. What makes it even worse is the characters in the game are large and detailed, which is good, but it means there's not a lot of space between the enemies and the player. And when an enemy shoots a bullet, it often appears like in front of the enemy, and then it hits you before it even looks like it touches you. What it all means is that there is not a lot of room to move around and try to avoid getting hit. How would I fix this? The first thing that needs to happen is to remove collision detection with the top half of the player character. In these kinds of 2.5D games, it always bugs me when a bullet that's obviously behind the player ends up in a collision with the player, simply because that's how it looks on screen. It's lame. Collisions should only happen with the player's lower half in this game. Other than that, it's just some general cleanup. Make bullets appear earlier, when an enemy shoots them. Get rid of the awkward knockback when the player gets hurt. And just have the character start flashing for a bit when, while they're invincible. Keep it simple. Another area where this game is a little wonky is the enemy AI. Like this mini boss. He just kind of drove into the corner and ran out of gas or something? I don't know. This was the worst example, but there's quite a few times when the enemies just felt kind of glitchy like this. But, despite a few issues, this game really is pretty fun. I replayed through the entire game just for this review, and honestly, it was fun all over again. The 1 hour it took me to beat it went by really quickly, and there's also a simple password system, so you don't have to do the whole game in one go. I mentioned there's puzzles in the game. This game is kind of funny. It never really gets to the point where it feels like a full-on action game, but it also never really feels like a puzzle game. I guess it's kind of like an espionage game almost, which fits the theme of the story, infiltrating the enemy base and taking them out. It's kind of like a blend of the old Contra and Metal Gear games. One thing the developers did a great job with is the large character sprites and the slow movement are perfectly tailored to the original Game Boy screen. It's never a challenge to see what's going on. All the characters, all the enemies, they just pop out of the screen. The game does do a good job of introducing its quirks to the players slowly. Sure, in stage 1 you'll take some damage from a stray bullet here and there, but it's still a pretty easy stage. Actually, the more I think about it, yeah, this game does a really good job of introducing the player to new mechanics, and has a really nice difficulty curve. There are some really cool puzzles, things like finding how do I explain this? Okay, finding a room on the second floor that you can drop down from into an otherwise inaccessible room on the first floor. There's also hidden doors that you can it looks like you're walking through the wall, but these hidden doors are never without clues to guide the player to them. Oh my gosh, my favorite is this enemy that reverses the controls on the Game Boy. You know, up is down, left is right. It's really fun. Ooh, and I didn't even talk about one of the coolest features of this game. It has 2-player multiplayer co-op. You and a friend can play together. One is the man, one is the woman, at the same time infiltrating the fortress. You don't even have to stay together. You can split up on different screens. It's really well done. Unfortunately, as cool as this feature is, the game is pretty linear and doesn't really lend itself to 2 players going at it at the same time. Not like, say, Double Dragon 2. But still, I appreciate that the programmers implemented it. But yeah, I enjoyed this game, even with its quirks. Is it worth playing today when there's so many other games available? Probably not. But it looks great. It sounds great for the most part. It's the perfect length for a quick playthrough. It has just enough puzzles and action to keep the player on their toes, and it's challenging enough to keep the player engaged without ever becoming stressfully difficult. And I love the cinematic ending. In conclusion, on my personal rating scale of crap, okay, good, and best, I rate this game as good. Which is a little tragic because it's so close to being ranked as one of the best games. I want to replay it until I remember just how wonky the collision detection is. But hey, check this out. This game actually has a sequel that was only ever released in Japan, and I hear it's even better than the first game. I had the biggest crush on her when I was a kid.